Are you ready? I don't think the world was. I'm about to tell you the story of Korn's Blind, which was released 30 years ago this month from my place in the hot seat. I'm Rob, and this is another one of my sonic stories. You know, it's hard to believe it's been 30 years. August 1st, 1994, Korn released Blind, the first single off their debut album, which wouldn't be released for another couple of months. And yeah, I do not think the world was ready. Here's what it was like. A couple months prior, it was March 1994, I started working up at Indigo Ranch Studios in Malibu. I walked into an album project with L3, the equivalent of the Rolling Stones in Mexico City. And the owner of Indigo Ranch, Richard Kaplan, I was assisting him and kind of learning the ropes of the studio and the room. And after that project was done, Ross Robinson came up with one project in particular, a woman named Lori Hayes, and they were doing a couple of songs, and he was kind of getting familiar with the room as well. Really liked the vibe, and you know, how could you not? It was a 60-acre ranch way up in the hills of Malibu. That's another story for another time. We're going to get back to Korn. Korn had been in pre-production, as you could call it, with Ross, and they were looking to him for guidance, and him finding Indigo Ranch, he decided he would bring them up there to record their debut album. They had gotten a record deal and a budget, and so up to Indigo they went. I'm going to talk about the album session as a whole in another video, but I'm going to focus on Blind in particular for this one. So Ross brings Korn up to Indigo Ranch. We set up all their gear for tracking, drums, bass, guitars. Mainly we're going for drum tracks initially and bass if we can get it. So we set all that up. We got our sounds over the course of a couple of days. They had these 7-string guitars. They were a little out of tune. Those guys didn't know how to intonate, and I'm like, oh, I know how to do intonation. So I took both 7-string guitars into the main room and dialed them in and got the intonation as best I can, ready to go. Anyway, we get the guys all set up in the studio. It's time to lay down tracks. We put up the 24-track 2-inch reel on the machine. All tracks in record. We're recording live to tape. We set up everybody in the studio, everybody in their places. Drums, bass, guitars, guitar cabinets were in an outer room. Jonathan in a vocal booth, so everybody has line of sight and can see each other. Ross goes in the other room to vibe with them, as was his modus operandi. Chuck Johnson, Richard Kaplan, and I are in the control room. Chuck hits record, ready, go, and they start laying down Blind, that unmistakable intro. Those staccato guitars, that triggered 808 sound that David was triggering from behind the kit, and then Jonathan's vocal intro. Are you ready? Shit, man. That stuff just hit. And they got into it. They got about partway into a verse or so, and we looked at each other. We were like, it was like nothing else we had ever heard. And we just thought to ourselves, this is going to be huge. This, you know, we vocalized it too. Wow, this is something unlike anything that's been done before. And there was a sense that something was happening. You know, a little indication of a sense that something was happening is, you know, the guys lived up there with us for several weeks as we recorded this album. One night they were all eating pizza, and as they got done eating the pizza, they cut the pizza box, a circle out of it, and made like a fake gold record out of a pizza box and put it up on the wall next to the couple from Neil Young and other albums that had been recorded up there, Moody Blues. And there's a joke, you know, okay, you know, our gold record's gonna be on that wall. Don't be surprised. During those sessions, I told Monkey, Brian, Head, I was like, dude, you know, funny, you know, we're hanging out here. Not long from now, you guys could probably be on the cover of Guitar Player magazine. And, you know, we laughed that off. But sure enough, within the ensuing years, they made the cover of Guitar Player magazine. But Blind, man, what a fucking song. I'm gonna swear on this one because, hey, it's fucking Korn. And we were just free and off the hook and deep in it. You know, those sessions were pretty crazy. It's no secret. There was some tweaking going on and a lot of pot smoking and a ton of beer drinking, parties almost every night, and it just lended to the vibe. But Blind fucking hit big. As a song, Blind was in existence pre-Korn with a band called Sex Art that Jonathan was in, with Dennis Shin, Ryan Shuck. They were co-writers of Blind. They did eventually get credit for it. It was reworked a little bit though, and you know, when you go into the studio, things happen, you know, things change. You modify stuff, you go with the vibe. You got different people, you got different situations, you got different gear, and things become their own monster. Blind became a monster. Not as small as this mosquito monster buzzing around my head. So anyway, Blind hits, and the music world has changed forever after. It ushers in what they call nu metal. Genres, terms, whatever you want to call it. It was just another take on metal, a different approach, raw, real, and sincere. And it's garnered a lot of acclaim in subsequent years. I mean, again, that intro. Voted by Kerrang as one of the best metal intros of all time. And sure enough, and what an album opener. I mean, there's no mistaking that. I mean, here, right here, a lesson for you. Album opener. You want to introduce yourself. Unmistakable. That ride cymbal. The staccato guitars. The 808, little bass line. And Jonathan, are you ready? I mean, you know, a recipe for success. I mean, we heard it that day. That day, it was like, wow, this is something. The video was shot and directed by McG. He also went on to do the Charlie's Angels movie. McG was hanging around. He was a friend of those guys, did photography and videography. And you'll actually see in the beginning of the video, there's a couple of clips from Indigo Ranch. One is the studio dog, Richard and Julie's dog, Cheetah, laying on the ground. Look at that sweet pup, just smiling away. Then there's another clip you can see of Jonathan in one of the chairs in the back of the room. You see this Teletronics LA2A limiter there. And I'll juxtapose it with another shot of me with Jonathan and Brian in the control room so you can get a little idea of the aspect. Videos are necessary, and this is a pretty simple one, just them rocking out in front of a crowd interspersed with these shots. Very cool thing. So I don't want to drag this on too much longer, but that is the story from my perspective as an assistant engineer, my first big album assist. Uncredited. I did end up getting credit on the second one, but you know, I was also a runner for them, and but you know, I put my hand in. I helped set up everything. I intonated guitars. I watched for tuning. I ran the tape machines. I was a classic tape jockey, and I put my all into it. And you know, we'll talk about that session in its entirety another time, but I just wanted to give you a few words about Blind. 30 years to this month that it was released. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you all in another one.